Hello there, Australia. It's a pleasure to speak with the attendees of the first Australian Regional IASD Conference, held in concert with Dream Network Australia. Thanks to Susan Benson for inviting me to talk with you and for all the hard work that she's put into making this event a success. Thank you, Susan. I really wish I could be there with you in person, especially to meet those of you who are newcomers to the IASD. Welcome to our tribe of dreamers. And I'd also like to say hello to longtime friends Robbie Bosnack and Jody Grundy, who I know are there, and I wish I could be with you. And I'm also sorry I can't be there to meet David Tacey, whom I have not yet gotten to meet in person, but who wrote a brilliant chapter for a book I recently published called Teaching Jung. And so, David, I hope you have a good time at the conference, and hope to meet you again soon. So I'm scrolling down here as I go, presenting here from my study in Portland, Oregon, and I'm grateful to Susan for her willingness to let me do it this way. I've got a complicated life and I couldn't make it all the way to Australia this weekend, but this format will help me share some ideas with you, and I encourage you to contact me after the conference if you have any questions or anything you want to follow up on. I am not with you there, but I will be at the Berkeley conference, the annual conference of the IASD in June. I hope as many of you as possible can come. It's a lot of fun, just like this event you're at. And in Berkeley, I'll be making two presentations about a digital archive and search engine that I've been designing to promote empirical dream research. It's called the Sleep and Dream Database, or SDDB, and it's an open access tool for analyzing patterns of word usage in dream reports from people of varying demographic backgrounds. Well, in my talk today, I'd like to bracket out the technical aspects of how I'm designing the database, the pros and cons of word search methods, the ethical issues that come up. I'm going to talk about all of that in my Berkeley presentation. So I'll just set those aside for the moment. What I really want to do is focus on the initial finding that I've made using the SDDB to study a theme that's fascinated me since the very beginning of my interest in dreams, namely the interplay of dreaming and nature. And I credit Jung and Freud and Nietzsche before them for the early recognition that dreaming connects us at the most profound levels with the ancient powers and chthonic energies of the natural world. And I don't believe enough people in dream research, let alone the general public, fully appreciate the implications of the fact that dreaming is rooted in nature. Hopefully this presentation will give you a sense of what I mean by that. Well, one of the first academic articles I ever published when I was still a graduate student was for the journal Environmental Ethics, and it was titled The Quest for Transformational Experience, Dreams and Environmental Ethics. And this was back in 1991. And I reprinted that article in the 1999 book I did, Visions of the Night. In that 91 article, I was responding to environmental philosophers I'd been reading who were lamenting the difficulty of changing people's stubborn habits of dualistic thinking, which contribute to our mistreatment of nature, the tendency to separate ourselves from others, from other phenomena, from nature, and thus to treat it with less ethical regard than we treat ourselves. That was a real problem these philosophers felt, and they wanted to know where we could find a source of transformational experience to help us overcome destructive dualism and remind people of their deep connections to nature. Well, I argued in this article that dreams were one such source of transformational experience. Dreams have served as agents of environmental awareness for people throughout history and around the world as they've interacted with the natural world, with the land, animals, and the elemental forces of life. If you want to help people overcome dualistic consciousness, you should really encourage them to pay more attention to their dreams. Well, that was my argument to the environmental philosophers in that early article. In 1994, my doctoral dissertation was from the University of Chicago Divinity School, was published with the title The Wilderness of Dreams. And here I will show you the painting from. This is one of the virtues of being able to do it this way. This is a painting that my friend Josh Adam did for the cover of that book, The Wilderness of Dreams. And this is a creek in unspecified location in the Mount Tamalpais watershed of Marin County, California. Haunting grounds of both Josh and myself. And down over here, you see the what Josh called the Dream Hut, which he never said who lived there or who built it, but there it is, the Wilderness of Dreams. In the dissertation, I developed the metaphor of dreaming as an unexplored wilderness, to look at 8 people's distinctive paths into that forest. And the 8 figures I looked at were Sigmund Freud, Andre Breton, Carl Jung, Calvin Hall, Alan Hobson, Stephen LaBerge, Barbara Tedlock, and Harry Hunt. And each of their paths revealed important features of the wilderness of dreaming, though some of the paths, Freud, Hall, Hobson, and LaBerge, were, according to my evaluation, more intent on extracting resources from the wilderness for use by the waking ego, whereas other paths, those of Breton, Jung, Tedlock, and Hunt, were oriented by a desire to understand the natural processes of the wilderness itself in all its colorful diversity. The main concept I developed in the dissertation was about root metaphors in highly memorable dreams, or what Carl Jung would call big dreams. By the term root metaphors, I meant metaphors that reach deep into the psychic depths, to draw wisdom from the collective unconscious, metaphors that generate new growth in consciousness and remain a vital source of energy and insight throughout life. A year or so later, this is sort of going through why I've been so interested in dreaming in nature for all these years. I got to know a Forest Service professional named Herb Schrader, who wrote a chapter for a book I edited called Among All These Dreamers about dreams and the environment. And Herb made a presentation at an ASD conference, I want to say in 1995, 94, 95, somewhere in there, mid-90s, where he came and shared his views of how the role of dreams in resource management and the role of dreams in generating a sense of the value of nature apart from any instrumental or utilitarian use of nature. And I just want to read you quick a dream from Herb's chapter called Seeking the Balance. What's the overall? So the title of this chapter was Seeking the Balance, Do Dreams Have a Role in Natural Resource Management? And he, at the beginning of the chapter, shared a dream that one of his colleagues had that inspired this colleague's choice of a career in resource management. And here's the dream. He said, a number of years ago when I was working/living in a field unrelated to the environment, forest, natural resources, I had a dream. The dream opened a new door, leading me to a new work and new work and thoughts to an area that fits my life in a way no other has. This is what I remember of it. I was facing east, deep in a forest of large old trees. The foliage was dense. Perhaps there were vines or moss in the trees, adding to the depth and shades of green. Sunlight was making its way through the green, from the east, maybe an hour after sunrise. Mostly the sun made the leaves glow. Some shafts pierced through. There was a communication between the trees and I, not verbal, yet not ephemeral either. There was a rightness, a sureness I felt in being there, as well as an excitement, a charge. I woke with a line in my head, quote, that's what I do with my life. It's the big green stuff, the big green stuff being the trees. Well, the dreamer goes on, since that time I've pursued an advanced degree, changed jobs, and come down where I ought to be, in the words of the Shaker hymn. And this person became a natural resource professional by virtue of that dream, by being inspired by that dream. And significantly, he wanted to stay anonymous. Didn't want anybody to know that because it would threaten his persona, his the professionalism that he needs to maintain in that field. You can't say you were inspired by a dream, and yet there it is. So anyway, that's I learned a lot from Herb, and I think that chapter is a great resource on this topic. Briefly also mention in a work I did in 2008, American Dreamers. I had 10 people keep year-long dream journals and shared them with me for research purposes. Half the people were very conservative politically, and half of them were very liberal politically. This again in an American cultural context. And one of the things I looked at in analyzing their dream journals was the role of the environment, of nature, of animals. And I found that actually both liberals and conservatives had a lot of nature elements in their dreams, but with a different. And then I did some follow-up questions with them and asked them about their views of the environment and nature. And just very briefly, what I found was that the liberals were more likely to have kind of an immersion in nature, whereas the conservatives were more likely to respect nature kind of from a distance with boundaries around it in its proper place. So all these people valued nature and in their dreams interacted with nature, but the conservatives had a more sort of structured interaction with nature and were threatened when those boundaries were in danger or violated or overcome. Liberals were more interested in sort of fusing with nature and merging with nature. So that's interesting. That's also fed my understanding of this broader theme of dreaming in nature. And then in Dreaming in the World's Religions, I talked about lots of different cultures and religious traditions that have woven nature imagery into their dreams and their teachings about dreams. Obviously, indigenous cultures from North and South America, from Africa, and from Australia and New Zealand and Oceania generally, those are cultures deeply, deeply grounded in the natural phenomena of their waking lives and their dreaming. And I certainly hope at the conference there are people who can share some of that with you, particularly from an Australian and oceanic perspective. Just fascinating material that I will defer to the real experts I expect are also going to be with you at this conference. What I want to do, so that's just a quick survey of how fascinated I've been by this theme of dreaming and nature and the interplay between dreaming and nature from the very beginnings of my interest in the study of dreams right through to the present. And that's what I want to talk about today. Share with you. You can read about those other things I've talked about, but what I want to share with you today is kind of the right at the forefront of my thinking and my work, and something I think is timely as well. So for the past couple years, I've been developing the Sleep and Dream database, as I mentioned, a digital archive and search engine designed to make dream research faster, easier, more accurate, more flexible, and more transparent than ever before. And the software engineer who's been helping me with this project, Kurt Bolacher, he suggested I title this talk, How to Be a Dream Researcher in 15 Minutes. And while that's a slight exaggeration, it does express something of my motivation in trying to radically expand the public's access to and engagement with dream research, and to inspire people to pursue new research projects of their own. I think we can just blow this field up by making the tools of research more accessible and making collections of dreams more accessible for, to tap into the wider community of people who are interested in dreams and who can help us study them. So on the SDDB website, I've actually been using another metaphor from nature to describe what the database can do, or my hopes for it. A metaphor drawn from astronomy. I believe digital search technology has the potential to do for dream studies what the telescope did for astronomy. The telescope enabled people to see farther into space than ever before, exploring realms of the universe invisible to the naked eye. The mission of the SDDB is to promote a similar kind of technological revolution in the study of dreams, enabling us to see farther into the dreaming universe than ever before, identifying bigger patterns and more significant singularities than previously possible using pre-digital research tools. Well, that's the vision anyway. It's very experimental still, but I think the actual results so far are encouraging. And you might have just seen, or back that way, my cat's, one of my cats, he'll probably make an appearance here at some point. He's jealous of my attention. So anyway, so for this study, how did I set this up? So the first thing I did was take a subset of dream reports from the SDDB that I consider a provisional baseline of dream content. It's obviously a huge question what counts as a representative sample of human dreaming, and I'm certainly not offering that. But I've got a sample here that I think provides a step in that direction, in the sense of a good, solid collection of dream reports gathered in a systematic fashion that we can study empirically and see what we find. So what I'm calling the SDDB baseline sample includes a total of 2,087 dream reports of between 50 words and 300 words in length. 1,232 of the dreams come from females, 855 from males. 331 of the dream reports come from a group of children between the ages of 8 and 18. 284 of the dreams come from a group of college students in the 18 to 22-year-old range. And the remaining 1,472 dreams are from adults 18 years and older. So it's got some gender balance, it's got some age balance, it's also got its limitations as a sample. All the participants are Americans. All of them are educated and or computer literate. So it's again, it's not a perfectly representative sample of the whole human race, but it's a sample. It's of a reasonably representative, at least in an American cultural context. So that's actually the best way. Yeah, there's that's Strauss back there, that side there, checking out his domain. So the way so what I started with in looking at this sample of contemporary educated Americans, and that's basically what it is, was using the SDDB's template of 7-word classes, broad classes of words that frequently appear in people's dream reports, just to get an initial overview of this set of dreams. So I found that perception words appeared in at least 69% of the female dreams and 67% of the male dreams. And vision was the most frequently mentioned sense. Smell and taste, the least frequently mentioned. I found that perception words appeared in at least once in 69% of the female dreams and 67% of the male dreams. I just said, okay, sorry, working my way down here. Emotion words appeared in 42% of the female dreams and 27% of the male dreams, much higher for the females on the emotion scale. And fear was the most frequently mentioned emotion. Cognition words appeared in 49% of the female dreams and 48% of the male dreams, basically the same. Words referring to characters appeared in 55% of the female dreams and 45% of the male dreams, so higher frequency of characters in the female dreams. Social interaction words appeared in 56% of the female dreams and 49% of the male dreams, so higher social interactions a little bit for the females. Culture-related words appeared in 51% of the female dreams and 52% of the male dreams. And then on the class of words for nature, and this is what I'm going to really zero in on, these words appeared at least once in 39% of the female dreams and 41% of the male dreams. So what do any of those numbers mean? That's a question, of course, that comes up with any type of quantitative analysis of human experience. How do we translate the numbers into something meaningful, something that relates to actual life, something that helps us learn and grow? Well, I look at these results as establishing some empirical boundaries for theories about dreaming. For example, the fact that vision is the most frequently mentioned perceptual sense means that to understand dreams, we need to account for the primacy of visual experience in dreaming. The fact that fear is the most frequently mentioned emotion means that our theories have to acknowledge the high proportion of negative emotions in dreaming. The fact that about half of people's dreams involve social interactions mean that our theories about how... Whoa, the bird just flew right by. You could probably see Strauss. All the social interactions in dreams mean that we have to account for how the mind functions in dreaming with a degree of social intelligence. We have to take that into account. So putting the same point in feistier terms, if a theory did not account for the prevalence of vision or fear or social interactions in dream content, we'd have to say that's a pretty lame theory. We'd have to say that's a theory lacking a foundation in the empirical data. We'd have to say that's a theory that won't help us build up a better scientific understanding of the nature of dreaming. All right, well, let me turn now to the class of nature words that I just mentioned, which appeared at least once in about 40% of people's dreams. And I don't want to make very much of that number in and of itself right now, given the limits of my sample and methods. Instead, I want to look at the results for the 7 word categories that make up that nature word class. These 7 nature-related categories are weather, fire, air, water, earth, flying, falling, and then I also looked at a category of animal-related words for a total of 8. So animal words were also part of this analysis. And I'll go through them, what I found briefly, one by one. Weather. Weather-related words appeared infrequently in the SDDB sample, about 3% for both males and females. It seems that an awareness of weather conditions does not occur in most dreams, or at least does not make it into many dream reports. The few dreams that do include weather-related words are interesting in that they portray weather as an independent force in the dream, something enhancing the dreamer's mood in good sunny weather, and at other times threatening the dreamer with storms and tornadoes. Weather, when it appears in dreaming, often has a tangible impact on the dreamer's experience. It makes things happen, stirs things up, adds energy to the sensory environment. Well, fire. What about fire? Well, references to fire were a little more frequent than to weather, but still rather rare, about 6% for females and 8% for males. There may be something to the slightly higher frequency for males. I'm not sure about that. The dreams included references to the sun, stars, heat, and flames. Most of the references seemed rather tangential to the natural element of fire, but I did notice one dream that very directly expressed a visceral fear of environmental apocalypse. And this was from a male college student. Quote, "The burning of a rainforest. And I tried to interfere and stop it, but ended up being arrested and the forest still burnt down. And I remember sitting in the police station, and there was this feeling like someone wise had told me that I couldn't do or change anything in the world, and it scared me." I'll read that again just because I think that's an interesting dream. "The burning of a rainforest," he's put that in italics, "the burning of a rainforest. And I tried to interfere and stop it, but ended up being arrested, and the forest still burnt down. And I remember sitting in the police station, and there was this feeling like someone wise had told me that I couldn't change anything in the world, and it scared me." Well, that's a rare dream, to be sure, but it's the kind of dream that can and does happen. A dream in which an unusual depth of nature awareness emerges to stimulate an emotional response and raise an alarm. Air. Well, air-related words appeared in 7% to 8%, 7% of the female dreams and 8% of the male dreams. Most of the references have to do with breath, breathing, and feelings of air and wind around the dreamer. However, there are a number of false positives in these findings. Driving down a windy road, not a windy road. So I hesitate to say that air references are any more frequent than fire or weather references. Water. Well, it does seem that the most frequent natural element in dreams is water. About 14% of the female dream reports included a mention of water, and about 15% of the male reports. Oceans, lakes, and rivers make many appearances in dreams, and on a smaller scale, water appears as something people drink, spray in their gardens, and use for bathing and cleaning. The prominence of water in dreams is something I've noticed and found in almost every set of dreams I've studied using these methods. And it makes me wonder if, just as our planet's surface is mostly covered with water, And just as our bodies are mostly made of water, perhaps our dreams have a similarly high natural proportion of water in their elemental content. Who knows? Earth. Well, references to Earth-related words appeared in 9% of the female dreams and 10% of the male dreams. It looks like Earth words can be ranked second among the 4 classic elements in frequency of appearance, though I think we'll eventually find a lot of personal variation in how often the 3 non-water elements appear. Land, rocks, dirt, mud, these are some of the recurrent Earth words. And I sensed a discomfort with the element of Earth in several of the dreams. The dreamer being threatened by falling rocks, or impeded by mud, or upset that a possession had gotten dirty. Flying. Well, I consider flying, for these purposes anyway, flying and falling dreams to be nature-related in the sense of connecting us to gravity, a primal force of the cosmos that shapes every aspect of our physical existence. Flying, the transcendence of gravity, appeared in about 6% of the female dreams and 7% of the male dreams. Several of them were references to travel by airplanes or birds flying by. But many of the dreams were genuine flying dreams in the sense of in having all the wonder and delight that we normally associate with such experiences. Again, the rarity of these dreams should not diminish our appreciation for their experiential impact. They reveal the possibility of expanding our natural powers and rising above the current limits of our physical being. They disclose a potential for evolutionary growth beyond the seemingly fixed boundaries of waking life. Falling. Well, falling dreams with references to falling were more frequent than for flying, which 12% for females, 13% for males. And that certainly makes sense in terms of continuity with our waking life, which affords many more opportunities for experiences of falling than flying. The dreams, I think these frequencies also make sense as realistic portrayals of our relationship to gravity, and with the deeper existential truth that all life is a kind of rising up against gravity, and all life eventually succumbs to gravity and falls and dies. Falling dreams, I believe, simulate the greatest natural threat facing all animate existence, the threat of entropy. What goes up must come down. We feel that truth in our bodies, in our bones, in the very atoms of our being. Of course, we're going to dream about it as well. All right, last of these categories, animals, like Straussy back there. Well, I searched for many types of animal-related words, but I'm sure I missed some, so this is an area needing improvement. What I found in this study was 16% of the female reports and 14% of the male reports included at least one animal reference. And consistent with what other researchers have found, the children's dreams in my sample excuse me, have a higher percentage of animal references, 24% for the girls, 20% for the boys. And so this raises a question, does this mean that children are closer to nature than adults? Perhaps. It does seem that a higher proportion of animals in children's dreams is a stable pattern across many studies. Although perhaps we should say what the pattern really is a diminishing frequency of animal references in adult dreams. That's another way of looking at it. The animals that appear most often in my study were in order dogs, cats, horses, bears, fish, snakes, birds, and insects. The first 3, dogs, cats, and horses, are among the most familiar domestic animals. Bears are not domestic animals, and they actually appear most often to be aggressive, threatening creatures in dreams. Among different types of fish, sharks appear frequently like bears as frightening predators, putting the dreamer in the harrowing position of prey, the hunted. In other dreams, however, ocean-dwelling creatures like whales and dolphins reveal an amazing intelligence that teaches the dreamer something new about the natural world. When these findings about aquatic creatures make me wonder about the possibility of an oceanography of dreaming, an exploration of our dreams of the sea and all the life within it. Australia might be a good place to launch such a project. Snakes and serpents have been regular visitors to human dreams throughout history and in cultures all over the world. We could spend all day talking about snake dreams. They are truly powerful emissaries of nature and bearers of ancient evolutionary wisdom. I'm surprised at how often people contact me to ask about extremely puzzling and disturbing dreams of snakes. Recently, a video artist friend of mine named Ed Kelly and I created a video about snake dreams to help answer the kinds of questions that people often ask about these dreams and to give some possible answers and thoughts of what these dreams have typically meant through history. I'll put the address for this video. It's another YouTube video up on my website, kellybulkley.com, and you can check that out. We'd be interested in hearing what you think of it. It's for a general audience, people who are interested in snake dreams. So that's what we tried to do. Well, let me draw together some of these findings and return to that question of what do all these numbers mean? You know, when you do all these word searches, you generate all these numbers. What's the point? What significance do you draw from these kinds of findings? Well, I'm drawing at least two lessons so far. First, I think these findings help us establish and build up some empirical knowledge about broad patterns in dream content. For example, it seems that water is the most frequently appearing element in dreams. And it seems that children do dream more often of animals than do adults. Now, these patterns are not fixed laws of the universe, but they've appeared often enough to merit our consideration as recurrent principles of dream content. They're the kind of baseline frequencies that I think will help us understand better the nature of dreaming, both in terms of scientific theories and our practices of interpretation. Secondly, we learned that, at least for people in this study, references to nature are relatively rare in dreaming. Perhaps that's a reflection of life in a modern urban society. Perhaps people living in more natural settings are going to have more dreams of nature, more different types of dreams of nature. Now that would be a very cool research project right there. And if anybody listening to this is interested in that, let me know, or go forth and see what you can find and let me know. It's certainly something I'm interested in and am going to continue exploring. So that's I think a question that's prompted by these findings, a question that future research can hopefully help us understand. And what I found interesting in this study was that among the few nature-related dreams that were reported, there were several cases in which the elements of nature played a vivid and active role and an impactful role in the dream. To me, that suggests the potential for much deeper engagement with nature in our dreaming. Gravity, weather, the elements, animals, they're all present in our dreams, threatening us, befriending us, enlivening us, shaping our experiences and revealing new truths about the many dimensions of our existence. So in drawing my talk to some kind of conclusion here, I don't pretend that this kind of research tool can answer all questions about dreams, but I'm very interested in finding out what kinds of questions it can answer, because then we can use those answers as empirical guides to deeper explorations of dreaming that use qualitative, interpersonal, and/or intuitive methodologies. And in this regard, I confess to being a techno-utopian. I believe tools like the SDDB can make it easier for dream researchers to gather large amounts of data, to analyze the material quickly and accurately, and thereby to liberate their creative scholarly minds to focus on integration and synthesis, on discerning aspects of meaning and significance that a computer cannot identify, at least not yet. Now, if you followed me this far, you might have already wondered about a possible techno-utopian application of this tool. Could we monitor global dream content as a barometer of humanity's relationship with nature? Could we then identify environmental threats and dangers from variations in the baseline patterns? If the SDDB is a telescope, could it enable us to see the approach of a killer meteor? Well, we're very far from having a big enough research network to say much about global dream content. However, I think we actually do possess the technological wherewithal to reach that goal. It's a tractable problem, as my database engineer Kurt Bolliker likes to say. A tractable problem is something that you can see a reasonable and realistic path towards its solution. The biggest obstacle to a kind of a global dream network and monitoring kind of system, it's not technological, it's political. In modern Western societies, dreaming is simply not taken seriously as a source of accurate information about anything, let alone threats from the environment. What would it take for governments to accept the findings of dream research as actionable intelligence? We're so far from a world where that's any kind of a tractable problem. So does that mean that no matter how advanced our knowledge is and how sophisticated our technologies, we must forever share the mythological fate of Cassandra, possessed of valuable truths, yet never being heard or heeded by others? I don't think so. I actually look for inspiration in another mythic story, that of Joseph and the Pharaoh, which is told in Jewish, Christian, and Muslim scriptures. And I'm grateful to Meredith Sabini, who's also going to be giving a talk at the Berkeley ISD conference. I'm grateful to her for highlighting this story as perhaps the first environmental catastrophe dream in recorded history. You'll recall that Joseph, and this is in the story, book of Genesis, you'll recall that Joseph had been cast out and left for dead by his brothers because of his audaciously prophetic dreams. He had seen accurately what was coming, and he shared his knowledge with his family. But his brothers did not like the future that he foresaw, and they thought that by killing him, they could kill that future. Joseph escapes death, but he ends up in the Pharaoh's prison, where he displays his skill not just as a dreamer, but as an interpreter of others' dreams. Now, just at this time, the Pharaoh experiences two highly disturbing nightmares, which his royal diviners are unable to interpret. The Pharaoh hears of Joseph's interpretive skills and asks for his help. Joseph listens to the dreams, and after crediting God for helping him understand, explains that the two dreams of the seven thin cows followed by seven fat cows followed by the seven thin cows, seven fat grains of ears of grain, seven thin ears of grain. He explains that these dreams mean that a drought is coming to the land, with grave danger for the people of Egypt. But if the Pharaoh takes the threat seriously and makes preparations for the looming environmental disaster, the people will be able to survive. Well, I think this story has planted a seed of possibility in our mythological imaginations that may one day bear fruit. The story of Joseph and the Pharaoh teaches that dreaming does tune us into the rhythms of nature and the natural world. Through our dreams, we can foresee environmental dangers, and we can use that knowledge to act to avert the impending catastrophe. And I'll leave you with the thought that we don't have a pharaoh today, a single all-powerful political authority. Rather, we have to speak to a world of widely distributed political power, many sources of power and influence in decision-making. And we have to use many different voices to encourage deeper engagement with the natural insights of dreaming. And that's the work not just of one interpreter, but of many, like yourselves. Well, I want to thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy the conference.